Hey everybody, it's your favorite gentleman, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. Today, we're going to talk about my favorite topics is real estate and taxes. Everybody loves taxes, right? But this man I'm bringing to the stage is the best of both worlds. You won't want to miss 1 second of this powerhouse speaker. This man has a combined knowledge of over 15, 20 plus years of experience in both avenues. So stay tuned, stay with us. You won't want to miss a second of it. Here we go. Hey everybody, welcome to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I'm your host, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. And today I have Mr. Keith Blackborg, CPA, who's reached financial freedom within 10 years due to success as an investor and tax strategist. Mr. Keith and his wife, Jessica, have experience with domestic and international investments, including residential and commercial real estate, lending, startups, and paper assets. Mr. Keith served as the director of acquisition for a hedge fund and transacted the largest private sale of homes in the U.S. history. He used his own CPA firm focused on high net worth real estate investing to include high volume single family investments and apartment syndications and those tax strategies that we mentioned earlier. We're going to get into some of those questions today here and how he showed his clients how to legally, that's big in America, save 5 to 10% of their income in taxes each year. So without further ado, I can go on and on about this man, but I'm going to just bring him in. Help me welcome to the stage the incredible, the amazing Mr. Keith Blackborg.
Thank you, Marcus. Great to be here.
Absolutely. Great to have you, sir. Welcome to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. Mr. Keith, your resume is extensive, sir. But I have to ask this question. I want to dive in. Successful people have successful habits, things that they do day in and day out. And your resume, you've done practically everything. What's your secret? Is it coffee? Is it yoga? Is it meditation? What's your secret, sir? Can you spill some tea?
Frankly, it's not being overwhelmed, relaxing, and being able, not trying to do it all at once. If I try to do it all at once, I get overwhelmed and I get nothing done. And so being in a constant rhythm of doing several things, but one is taking care of yourself, being grounded with your family is where I continue to get joy and happiness. My relationship with the Lord certainly is a huge part of that. And then from there with just wealth building habits, being in the habit of building my deal flow, the process, and just a range of things that mean I'm constantly taking incremental steps towards the goals that I have.
Absolutely. There you go. Not getting overwhelmed, not letting the rush. And I'm overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed just reading his bio, right? I was like, how did he do all of that? So that's priceless, and that's key that you find yourself working so that you make sure not to let it overrush you. What advice or what tips would you say to that young man or that young woman out in the audience to not be overwhelmed?
So I will say that advice comes from me going through a long period of being overwhelmed. And so I know what it's like to be a workaholic. And I did a lot of that. And it certainly brought financial success, but it didn't necessarily bring personal success. And so I went through a period in my life where I had the money, had the car, had the house, had the business, but I was constantly going. If I wasn't working, my wife and I were traveling. We didn't have any kids at that time. And so we were always on the go. And so if I were to just bring it back in 2016, we had a major change in our life. And I'm happy to speak more to that. going forward, I've learned that I've really got to set my boundaries, what I'm willing to do for work, but really be intentional about the time I spend with my family and the other priorities I have in life, so that no one part of my life overtakes another, because it can be disastrous when you get so focused on everything that it is the only thing you do.
Absolutely. Very, very true. Round of applause, y'all. Keith Blackborg, spilling the tea. Mr. Keith, I want to get to the nitty gritty. I want to get to the meat, the bones, the core. How did you do it? How did you retire at age 32? How did you do it? Can you share some of that? Can you share how did you make that possible? Because that's just staggering. That's overwhelming in itself. I feel personal.
Sure.
I'm 33.
Well, that means you could have retired a year ago then, huh?
I'm late to the game. I'm late, brother. I'm late to the game.
It's not a competition. So I started investing in real estate when I was 25, back in 2009, 2010. I heard about this thing, rental houses, flipping houses. I went to a Robert Kiyosaki event, and he talked about it. Ended up joining with a local real estate group, and so in August of 2010, my wife and I bought two houses. She was my girlfriend at the time. We bought two houses, a rental and a flip, and from there we took off, and we're doing several properties a year. And so after doing that for several years, I got known as a guy who was able to do deals and do a lot of deals. I went and served as the director of acquisitions for a hedge fund, and that's where things really grew. And with them, I was purchasing through auctions and wholesalers and MLS, and that's how we ended up getting 875 houses in 9 months, and later sold that. Along the way, I had been building up a CPA firm focused on high net worth real estate investors. I started small, but when people saw that I could integrate tax strategy with the investment strategy at once, I was able to provide significantly more value than your average tax preparer, since I really focused on the tax strategy. And from there, we grew. I learned I could make much more ground quickly by doing commercial real estate. So how many houses do you have to do in order to do 100 units in an apartment complex? Certainly taking down a 100-unit apartment complex is a lot more work than one house, but is it the same amount of work as 100 houses? No. And so in that case, we went into a space where we felt like we could really leverage our time and money. And that's when we started doing active and passive investments into hotels and apartments. And along the way, I started working with a bunch of high net worth apartment syndicators. And so fast forward to 2014, 2015, I had a large firm, 400 clients, 5 employees, and these weren't simple tax returns. And I felt like I could never get away. And so if a client, I could be on a vacation somewhere, but if a client was trying to close a 8-figure, 9-figure transaction, I felt like I had to drop what I was doing and go to that. That led to some conflicts in my marriage. There was a point where a divorce was considered, and I was afraid I was going to lose everything. And so I went from feeling really successful financially to feeling like that wasn't worth it compared to all the other stuff that was going on at the time. And so in that, around 2016, I thought Hillary was going to get elected. I thought the market was going to crash. There was a temporary spike in interest rates. And so I sold I sold the CPA firm, I sold our commercial assets, and then transitioned out of our real estate holdings that we were directly controlling over the next couple of years and put those into private investments. So as a CPA, I learned who the best performing syndicators were out there. There were several clients that were consistently doubling their investors' money every 2 to 3 years. So I put money with them, and things have just gone really well since then. And so from there, I went into private investments, some startups. I put some money into some startups in China and to Australia, just kind of a range of things, music royalties, oil and gas, some stocks, but I really like the investments that are more private, that I control, or I've got some sort of a competitive advantage in. And so 2016, 2017, I just kind of took a step back from it all. My wife and I went and just traveled the world for a few years. And later, coming out of that, we started Financial Journey because I still wanted to do something. If I wanted to make the most amount of money possible, I just go do syndication, investment syndication, like commercial deals. Instead, I wanted to help people, and that's how Financial Journey was born, is helping other business owners who want to reach work optional, connect them to the wealth, the deals, the framework to help them get where they want to go.
That's a lot, y'all. That's a lot, and I wanna unpack some of that. And so you've touched it all. You've touched commercial, you've touched apartments, you've touched single family, syndications. By the way, y'all, a syndication is when you raise capital. So you're the person that goes out and finds a deal, and people give you money, and you're syndicating. You're the one deal finder, and people are investing in you to buy the real estate property. Which you've done it all. Which one is your favorite asset class, and what do you recommend to your clients as far as selecting their own investment strategies?
One, find something that fits your competitive advantage. So you look at your own background, your own experience. What are you good at? What do you like to do? And where do you see the market's at now? So I can talk about what I do, but what made sense to me then might not make sense if I were to go repeat it now. So some of my favorite asset classes, I like apartments a lot, but I also think they're really bid up. And so now I like deals where I can add significant value. And so in today's market, that could be hotel to apartment conversions. I've got another client I'm working with that is buying office buildings anywhere from 3-story to, I think it was 90 stories was his big one in Cleveland. And he's converting it to apartments, some retail, and retaining a small amount of office space, or buying up RV parks. There's a lot of mobile home parks right now that could be transitioned, or RV parks that could be transitioned to high-end motor coach parks, where you've got so many people out there that went out and bought RVs due to COVID that have that are now able to work from anywhere. They're location independent. They just need a nice internet connection, maybe some amenities, and they're willing to pay significantly for them. So I look for ways that I can add significant value to a market where there's not a lot of competition. Right now, there's a lot of competition for multifamily. So if I were just starting out, I don't know that I'd go in there now. Self-storage is also a market that's somewhat hot. I still think there's some opportunities there. It's not as hot as multifamily. But if you can find the right mix of maybe finding like tertiary buildings or properties, retail that could be converted. I love doing conversions or unique ways to add value.
This is major, y'all. We have one quick commercial break. You guys don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Stay with us. Stay engaged. We'll be right back.
Good day, podcast listeners. This is your boy, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I wanted to let you guys know that we will be rolling out a new feature and adding a join sponsor button next to the subscriber button here at the bottom of your screen. Once you click the button, it will display 3 membership levels. Gentleman Gentry, which is our entry level, Duke Duchess, which is our season level, and the Emperor and Empress, which is our most sophisticated level, which you will receive unique perks and benefits at each differing level and gain access to our community tab. We will also be sharing polls, upcoming events, and interviews, as well as receive feedback from our sponsors directly. Your support helps me find new and exciting guests to bring to the stage live. Well, in order to get the higher end speakers, it requires, you guessed it, money. So thank you for tuning in to my channel. And if becoming a sponsor sounds good to you, then select the join button below and choose your desired sponsor level. Let's continue to grow and serve the future of generations of men and women to come. Love you guys. Bye.
We are back to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and today we have Mr. Keith Blackborg, CPA, business mogul, strategist extraordinaire, consultant, and I think author. Is extensive, y'all. This resume is extensive. This man has done it all, and he is a true expert. He's done single family, multifamily, commercial real estate. Him and his wife have done syndication. They have literally done it all, and they are here on the Gentleman Style Podcast show to spill some tea. Not all the tea. They can't spill all the tea. You got to connect with him to get the rest of the tea, but he is helping us get to a better place in our real estate profession. Mr. Blackborg, sir, walk me through. You did something that most people don't consider. They don't even think about when starting a business. Is you sold businesses. You walked away from your firm. You sold all these businesses. Can you walk me through and my audience the financial and emotional process of selling a business?
Yeah. When you think about building a business, most people don't think what a business is worth when they first start. And so the thought of even selling your business is an afterthought for many. And so when you've built that business, you're often wondering, can I even sell this? What is it worth? And part of it's also your baby. You've worked for years, possibly decades, to build this business. You know it better than anybody else. And it's something that you really care about, but ultimately that business can also be the golden handcuffs that keep you in change. And that good life can also prevent you from living that great life. So one is understanding if or when you might want to sell. At the end of retirement, it's certainly a nice boost for you to get that sales price if your business is worth something. But if I were to start by talking to anybody, there's a few things I would do to walk them through this process. One, if you want to sell, when or why, and what are you going to do next? A lot of people, the reason they sell or don't sell is they don't know what else they're going to do with their time. And I think it's really important for you to look not so much what you're running away from, but get a clear vision of what you want to run to. Next, I get an idea of how your business is valued. So if you're in a service-based business, if you're really small, you're likely just selling a job. And selling a job, your business isn't worth much, possibly nothing. And so the more you can build up systems, the more employees you can have, the more you can build up a true business, something that operates without your involvement, then you've got something that's significantly worth more. So if you're selling something that's making maybe $100,000 net income or gross revenue a year, it's probably worth about 1 times that. So maybe $100,000. If, however, you're selling something that operates without you and it's doing $2 million a year in net income, then the multiples might be much higher. It might be worth something like $20 million. And that's why the more you can scale it, the more you can grow it, the more systems and processes you can put in place so the business can operate without you, the more that business is worth at sale, because you've got a real tangible brand, not just a job that you've been in for many years. And so once you know that you're selling, then there's this process of locating buyers. You could go through a business broker. If you know somebody you want to sell to, you can work them. You can do those negotiations directly. If once you get to that point where you put the systems and process in place, you put the value, you're getting the value you want, you're doing your best to hand over that business. So how can you smooth that transition from your customers to their customers without there being a big jolt in business changes, so that the new owner is actually able to achieve the business that you've built, that they're able to build on the successes you have, then that's how you're going to maximize the sale price and maximize their success. When I was selling, what I cared most about was that the clients and employees were well taken care of, not necessarily my own sales price. In time, you transition from not only sales price, but looking at what are the terms? Are you going to get all that money up front? Is it going to be over several years? There's actually some tax strategies that can go really nicely fit in there, where you don't have to recognize your capital gains all at once. It could be over time. There's different ways to negotiate that buy-sell agreement, in that we'll have have an impact on how the sales price is allocated and the different tax consequences. All things to think about. For me, when I sold, a lot of my ego was wrapped up into that business. I felt very important, that a lot of important people needed me. And so it was difficult for me I had a bit of an identity crisis. After that, I didn't know what I was going to do. And so I think it's important after selling not to immediately rush into the next thing, but embrace the quiet. Spend 3 months, 6 months, a year. You could go travel, you can pick up on a hobby that you did, but use that downtime to reconnect with yourself, connect with your higher power if that's something important to you, connect with your spouse. And then after you feel like you've regrounded yourself, then figure out what's next. If you're in your 60s or 70s, you might definitely be done. If you're a young guy like me, it's nice for a while, but at some point, I really wanted to go do something else. So we went and traveled, saw the world, went to every continent except Antarctica, traveled to, it was 50 or 60 countries, loved it, had a blast, but there's a time where you don't feel like your community's with you the entire time. And so you want something else to do. And that's where I ended up coming back to Financial Journey and really wanting to help other people. And for many people after selling, you'll even see some of the biggest greats like the Roosevelts or the Vanderbilts. A lot of them transition to philanthropic efforts where they feel like they're able to help other people after they spent so much time helping themselves.
That is powerful, and that makes sense, right? And you're right. A lot of people who are wealthy, right, the titans of industry who have come before us, they oftentimes, after they've built their wealth and amassed their wealth, they oftentimes go on this philanthropic journey of giving back. How can I serve, right? They're erecting museums, and they're giving back and putting knowledge in place and starting schools, funding colleges, funding major universities, starting Elon Musk, right? Starting planetary exploration, funding goals and aspirations like that. How do we travel to the moon? How do we get to Mars? That's always the trend of titans of industry. You know, Jeff Bezos and Blue Moon and his projects. That's going to be unique in itself. So you're right. You're right. I wanted to talk about how do people strategize, right? How can I determine if this investment is a good investment? So high ROIs, high return on investments, low risk. What strategies do you talk to your clients when evaluating a good investment?
That's a great question. So first and foremost, understanding your own competitive advantage. What do you like? What are you good at? What are your values? Does it align with your values? Is it something that you've got knowledge and skill in? Does it fit your risk profile? Are you younger where you feel like you can? When I first started off in my 20s, if I busted in real estate, I didn't care because I had nothing to lose. And so I was able to take huge risks. As I've gotten older and I've had $1 million, 7-figure loans that I've been personal guarantor on, there's a point where I've got something to lose. And I transitioned from just trying to focus on building wealth to preservation of wealth. And my attitude towards investments have changed. And so now I look at investments as not only how much can I make, but how much can I possibly lose? And how does this fit into my portfolio? One of the mistakes I made in initially building my portfolio is I saw lots of deals that I thought could be home runs. And a lot of them were just longer plays. And so what that meant was I was asset rich, but cash poor. So I always had enough money to do what I was doing. But one of the things I did was consistently review my portfolio with my wife. We sit down every quarter. I look at everything that we're in. I've got my notes on whether or not we're going to hold, buy, sell, or what my thoughts are with that. And she pointed out that, we've got the cash flow coming in, but not a lot of chances for liquidity in the next 5-7 years. When you're doing a lot of deals that are all 5 years plus, I had to start thinking about how does this investment deal fit through the rest of my portfolio. And so in doing so, it made me really think through how I want to construct my portfolio, what's the market conditions, what market assumptions am I making now that have to continue to be in place. And then I'm going to give, so that's a lot about how investments fit me. There's 5 questions I like to consider for every deal, just from a due diligence perspective. So 1, does this investment make business sense? Does whatever they're doing, does that make sense that you could make money doing it? Is it clever? Is it something that you feel like is going to add value to a lot of people? Number 2, how can you lose money with this investment? 3, what is the investment's competitive advantage? I like to invest in something where they've got a unique edge or a unique approach to business that's going to impact the way they do business, that's going to give them an edge over their competitors. How favorable is the risk to reward ratio? So there's a formula I have I share with clients. It's a little too complicated for a podcast, but there's in a few steps you can look at how much money do you feel like this investment could make? How much risk do you feel like there is? And based on that, you're able to determine a numerical amount to decide if the risk is worth the reward. Ideally, you're finding stuff like asymmetrical risk, high reward, low risk. Like you might think single family rental houses in 2010, asymmetrical risk. They were selling at less than you could build them for. You could get debt. You could buy a lot of them quickly if you were in that market. And a lot of them, people saw them as dangerous. It was a great time to get in, asymmetrical risk. And then lastly, how does this investment fit me, my portfolio, and my investment strategy? Is this going to help me get to where I want to go in the timeline I have set for myself?
Love it. Love it. Love it. I love this show. Oh my gosh. I love this show. You saw how passionate he is, y'all. You see the passion that comes out of him. And you can't help it. You can't help it when he gets very excited about what he does. And I wanted to just point that out. I'm sitting here. The beauty of this show is I get to take notes on all of this. So I'm like, scrambling and just learning and just eating this all up. I want to say thank you. I have to point out, thank you for your donation, Miss Erica Holmes. Your sponsorship, your donation to the channel helps us find unique and powerful guests like Mr. Blackborg and bring them to the Gentleman Style Podcast stage. Sir, Mr. Blackborg, Miss Holmes has a question for you. You and your wife invest together. You guys built your empire together. What advice? And Miss Erica asks, how does a couple work through the strategy of investments when in terms of relationships? How do you guys combine forces and do the whole combining of minds and getting on the same page? Because you gotta negotiate. Like, honey, this is a good deal. Well, what about this deal? What about this deal? Like, yeah.
Sure. I've seen this. I've worked with a lot of couples, and this works differently for different couples. But as you asked, I'll share how it works with my wife and I. I would not be where I am today without my wife's support and help. I ran with a CPA firm. I was involved high level with the real estate, but it was my wife and her efforts that really was the operational backbone behind the real estate investments. She is sharp. She is smart. It is so important to have her around me because she's my check on so many things. So first and foremost, either one of us can have veto power on any investment we're looking at. If she doesn't want it or I don't want it for any reason, there's plenty of things out there. So it's important that we're able to collaborate on that. I tend to be more aggressive as an investor. And so I'm willing to take bigger risks, and it's paid off, especially in the beginning. Those big risks really work themselves out. If I were to go back in time, I would not make some of those same risky moves now, simply because I've got more to lose. My wife has a higher need for financial security. And so one of the things we did for her was she wanted an amount in the bank account, 6 months of all of the of our lifestyle costs in a bank account that I'm not going to touch, because I'm personally a little more comfortable going a little thin, because I'm trying to invest as much as I can at the highest rate I can and make it grow. But if that balance gets too low, it makes my wife uncomfortable. And so with the business now, we check in every Friday for me to kind of just share what I've got going on. I'm the main driver behind that. We've got a 2.5-year-old now and a second one on the way. So life changes. I've told my wife that she can do whatever she wants, whether it's start her own business or do nothing. She frankly helped us get this far. I want to work, and she's not sure if that's part of her vision going forward, although she likes to help and be productive. And so in her case, she likes to know what's going on in the business. And it's also a good gut check for me in that it kind of provides, I don't know if accountability is the right word, but I feel like if I'm going in this meeting that I want to show results to my wife, or at least get her input on what we're doing, because she's got a skill set and some helps me see beyond my blind spot. So I really value that. And then also our quarterly financial review, which is where I mentioned earlier, I go through all my investments and she gets to ask questions about what we're doing and why. But it's not so much like an interrogation of my abilities. It's more of a joint effort of what we're doing or how we're doing. And she isn't so much into the numbers as I am as a CPA, but she likes to know roughly where we're at in all of this. And then on an annual basis, we sit down somewhere in like January, February, and we decide, what do we want the feel of this next year to be? Do we want to feel, are we going for a more relaxed year, consistent, stable, like we've been more recently with kids, and COVID kind of forced that? Or a few years ago, we were looking for excitement, for adventure, to go travel, and it was a very different feel. And so things will shift, and then based on what the feel of that year that we're looking for, we'll set goals to go along with that. That can be anywhere from health to faith to what the business can be. But it's not just finances that drives our primary discussion. It's meant to be more of a holistic check-in of how we're doing in life, finances, faith. And I will say that my wife and I still have arguments sometimes. And so for the most part, those conversations go well, but it's also a process that sometimes there is conflict, but through that conflict, we're able to work it out, and it really aligns our hearts in a way that we are truly partners in this. And I really appreciate that about her and her willingness to just kind of work through that in our marriage together.
He got me, y'all. He got me. He got me with the mushy stuff. When you say mushy stuff and partnerships and team, you got me. You got me, sir. Yes, Ms. Holmes, very, very passionate. She followed up. So you got her going, sir. You got her going. She wanted to follow up with another question. When you are starting your business, which one is it better? And maybe you're a little jaded in this because you're a CPA, but which one is it better to start with, a CPA or a tax lawyer?
In terms of usually a tax lawyer is somebody I'm going to bring in for like litigation or maybe certain high-level tax strategies. Really what I'm looking for, rather than one of those designations is a tax strategist, because tax strategist can be anybody who's either a CPA, an enrolled agent, a tax attorney. You really want somebody who knows your particular kind of business and is good at it. Right now, there's a ton of CPAs out there, but they're all overworked. They've got more than enough clients. If you can have a halfway decent conversation with people and not just talk and technical speak, you've got unlimited clients. There's not a lot of people going into the profession right now. And so I would start by either going to your local business group, your local RIA, some place where you're able to ask other people who are familiar with your business type, who do they use and do they get proactive tax strategy? Not many people get that. And so by finding somebody who does provide that is a huge advantage to have on your team. They probably charge a little bit more, but the true cost of tax preparation is not only the tax savings, but all the missed tax deductions that you could have gotten if you had used a tax strategist.
There you have it. There you have it. Drop the mic. If I could give him a mic, y'all, I would. I just send him so he could just drop the mic right there. We have one more commercial break from our sponsors. We got to pay some bills, y'all. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you're looking for a reliable professional trucking and logistics service, you've come to the right place. Musa Trucking is a veteran-owned and operated premier transportation provider that can help with all of your trucking and logistics needs. Musa is revolutionizing the trucking industry through strategic partnerships, the development of core personnel, and the use of cutting-edge technology. Our inventory system ensures that cargo ends up divided into the right trucks and reaching the correct destination. Our drivers are dedicated to transporting goods efficiently and safely. Contact us today to get started by visiting the website on the screen or by calling 757-756-5246.
We are back to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and we are here with Mr. Keith Blackborg, CPA, business extraordinaire, real estate mogul extraordinaire, here on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, and he is spilling some incredible tea that takes us to the next level with our business, and what strategies and what tips and what advice he's giving to his clients who connect with him, who are 10xing and growing their business. And he's here today. I wanted to address this question, sir. Mr. Blackborg, what are the best tax strategies? I'm a passive investor. I don't like to be very involved. I'm very hands-off, right? I want to work on the business. I don't want to be in the business. And you kind of alluded to it in the beginning. What's your best tax advice that you would give to your passive investors when it comes to private investments?
Well, you have 12 hours. We can really go through it all.
We'll have to do a follow-up session.
Okay. No, I'm gonna share. There's a bunch of things you can do. I'm gonna share something that I feel like probably your audience has never heard of, and will add significant advice, add value to what is possible. So let's say you've been stocking money away in your traditional IRA, traditional 401k, any sort of traditional retirement account. And you want to do a rollover from a traditional account to a Roth account so you never have to pay taxes again. But that rollover is going to be taxed at ordinary tax rates, likely 37% on the high end. So instead of just doing a rollover of $100,000 to a Roth and paying $37,000 in taxes, plus whatever your state income taxes are, and losing $37,000, I'm going to instead do a discounted rollover. So the way this might work is I invest in an apartment complex, and maybe this apartment complex has 80% occupancy. So I'm investing in somebody else's deal who's going to take the occupancy from 80% down to 60% as part of a major rehab. They're kicking out the non-performing tenants. And they're putting in new tenants who will pay. And as a result, the net operating income on that apartment complex drops in half. So apartment complexes are valued based on the net operating income. So maybe 6 months in, your $100,000 in investment is temporarily worth only $50,000 based on the drop of income. You don't actually lose any money, but the valuation has temporarily dropped. In that moment, you roll over the investment, not the cash, from your Roth to your traditional 401k, meaning your rollover is valued at $50,000 you pay taxes on instead of $100,000. And then later, because you invested with a great syndicator, that apartment valuation is going to pop up from $50,000 on up to $150,000 or $200,000 based on your initial investment of $100,000 cash. And then later, your investment, your valuation of $150,000, $200,000 is now within your Roth account. So you're never paying taxes again. That's a huge value add. And by the syndicator going out and getting a valuation, typically either from a tax attorney or another valuation guy, it's usually not that much money, and they can adds value to a lot of clients, a lot of their investors, and the investors, it's a huge benefit for them as well.
Told y'all, spilling the incredible tea. I'm gonna call you Dr. Blackborg. That's what that's what you are, sir. You that's huge. Never knew that. And I listen to a lot of podcasts. I've had a lot of experts on the channel. None of them have ever mentioned that strategy at all. That's huge.
That's the fun of doing what I do. There's so much possible out there. And as somebody who's focused on the tax strategy, there's so many things that clients could be doing as part of this. And that's why I love integrating a tax strategy with a business and investment strategy, because it really opens the possibilities.
Absolutely. How can we learn more? How can we connect with you, sir? How can we grow and get on board? The train has already left the station, but it's not too late to get on board. How can my audience members connect with you and learn more?
Sure. So I work with business owners and accredited investors to get them to work optional. I'm not the guy to take somebody who's just starting out and help them reach financial freedom. But if you already have some cards, you already have a deck that you can play with, I'm the guy that comes in and shows you how to play them more effectively and transform assets you have in one place, make the most of them, and reach work optional in a short time frame. And that includes the not only the framework, but the deals, the kinds of deals that allowed me to double my money every 2 to 5 years, depending on the syndicator, the tax strategy that goes along with that, and the overall investment strategy that fits you. You can go to my website, financialjourney.life, and there's more information there.
Absolutely. If there was a number, if you could place a number of what people should have before they come to you, what would that number be? Which number, if there was a number to that?
So I only work with accredited investors, and that's an SEC made up rule, simply because a lot of the investments and the deals I share with people are for accredited investors only. And in order for you to be accredited, you either, if you're married, need a $300,000 a year income or at least $1 million net worth.
Makes sense.
Excluding your residence. Yeah.
Makes sense. Miss Erica Holmes asks, can we be friends?
Sure, we could be friends.
Absolutely. So check him out, y'all. Check him out on his website. That is www.financialjourney.life. Financialjourney.life. Sir, Mr. Blackborg, sir, I want to say thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to be on the show today and give back in this way. I appreciate you, and I want to say this to you publicly. Don't ever quit, because we need you. We need what you're doing, and we need the impact that you're making in the world and what you are doing, and it is absolutely necessary.
Thank you, sir. You're a true gentleman.
Absolutely. Thank you all for tuning into the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I hope this message has served you, and I hope this helps take your business, your real estate, your tax strategies to the next level. And if you aren't, now you know who to connect with. Again, that's www.financialjourney.life. And I have Mr. Keith Blackborg. Reach out to him and his team to take your business, your real estate, your investment to the next level. Like I end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your homes, and always, always take care of business. This is Marcus Norman, your favorite gentleman, and Mr. Keith Blackborg signing off. Love you guys. Bye.